Welcome to the edge of the night, where the world's noise begins to dissolve into a velvet silence. Close your eyes and imagine a stillness that does not ask the world to be quiet. It is a peace that does not wait for your problems to vanish or for the storms to pass. It is already here, hidden like a secret beneath the layers of your day, waiting for you to simply notice it. Tonight, we journey into the heart of ancient Zen wisdom, exploring a radical question. What if your peace has absolutely nothing to do with your circumstances? Most of us live as if we are waiting for a permission slip from life. We think once the bills are paid, once the body is healthy, once the house is quiet, then I will rest. But the world is a shifting tide, and if your calm depends on the water being still, you will spend your entire life waiting on the shore. Thousands of years ago, a teacher sat with a man whose body was broken by illness. The man confessed that his pain was not easing, it was growing sharper. The teacher did not offer a cure or a promise of recovery. Instead, he whispered a quiet invitation. Though your body is afflicted, that your mind remain unafflicted. Think of a lake. The surface may be whipped into a frenzy by the wind, white-capped and chaotic. But if you dive deep enough, you find a stillness that has never been moved. You are that lake. Consider the story of a traveler who spent a week on a golden coastline. The air was soft, the water a clear turquoise, and the mornings tasted of sweet fruit and laughter. It was a perfect dream. But the dream ended. The traveler returned to the biting frost of the north, where the wind stings the eyes and the grey sky feels like a heavy shroud. Walking through that bitter cold, a realization arrived as softly as falling snow. The mind that knew the warmth of the sun and the mind that knew the sting of the frost was the exact same mind. Awareness itself is like a mirror. It reflects a blazing fire or a frozen tundra with the same clarity. The glass is not burned by the flames, nor is it cracked by the ice. It simply knows. It simply reflects. We are invited to discover this luminous quality within ourselves, not to build something new, but to recognize what has been here since the moment you were born. When you rest in this open knowing, you stop being the person who is having a bad day or a good day. You become the space in which the day happens. In a small monastery tucked away in the mountains, a teacher once sat with a student who was desperate for peace. The student complained of thoughts racing like wild horses, of a mind that refused to be quiet. The teacher simply poured tea, watching the steam rise in the cold air. He asked a single question. When the thoughts are racing, who is the one who notices? Is the one who notices in pain? Is the one who notices exhausted? The student sat in the silence between the teacher's words and realized that the space of the watcher is never crowded, no matter how many thoughts pass through it. It is a doorway you can walk through at any moment. You don't need years of meditation or a mountain retreat. You only need to look. Right now, as you lie here, sensations are arising. The weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the distant hum of the night. All of it is being known. And that knowing is not tired, it is not worried, it is simply present. We often fight battles that don't exist, much like a small bird I once saw in a parking lot. It had landed near a car's polished bumper and seen its own reflection. Believing it was facing a rival, the bird attacked, wings out, beak forward. It hit the metal, bounced off, and flew at it again and again, determined to defeat an enemy that was nothing more than its own image. How often do we do this? We see a look on a stranger's face or hear a tone in a friend's voice and weave a whole story of judgment and conflict. We fly at the reflections of our own fears, bouncing off the hard surfaces of reality, never realizing there is no one there to fight. In Zen, this is called mental proliferation, the mind's habit of spinning a single thread into a tangled web. We walk through a room of people, and within seconds, we have assigned them roles: the arrogant one, the lonely one, the happy one. We aren't relating to people, we are relating to the stories we've draped over them. But when the story collapses, we find something far more interesting: a human being, just as hopeful and confused as we are. Imagine you have worn tinted glasses for so long that you've forgotten they are on your face. The world looks blue, and you take that blue to be the truth. One day, someone asks you about the glasses. You reach up, feel the frames, and realize the tint belongs to you, not the world. This is the moment of freedom. It doesn't mean the world changes, but the grip of your beliefs begins to loosen. You start to see that much of your heaviness is in the lens, not the landscape. This brings us to the nature of wanting. We spend our lives reaching for the next pleasant thing, like a potter who makes beautiful bowls, but is always convinced the next one will be the one that finally satisfies him. He lives just behind the next bowl, never quite arriving. A passing monk once told him that the taste of peace isn't in the bowl, but in the moment of putting the tools down. It is the relief of an open hand. We think peace is the result of getting what we want, but true peace is the quiet gap that appears when the wanting stops. Inside each of us, two wolves are said to live, one restless and reaching, the other peaceful and still. They are always in conflict, and the one that wins is the one you feed. Every time you chase a desire without noticing, you feed the restless wolf. But every time you pause and notice the stillness that is already here, you feed the peaceful one. This isn't about becoming a person who never wants. It's about discovering that you have been gripping life far tighter than necessary. When you loosen the grip, the colors of life don't fade. They grow richer because you are finally seeing them without the film of craving. Think of your life as a river. You stand on the bank and watch the water flow. Is it the same river you saw a minute ago? The banks are the same, the shape is the same, but the water is always new. You are like that river. The thoughts you had this morning are gone. The cells in your body are shifting. Even the you who started listening to this story has changed. When you see the fluid, dreamlike nature of your existence, the solidity of your problems begins to melt. There is a weight we carry that we don't even see. Imagine a traveler crossing a vast plain, exhausted despite having no heavy pack. A hermit tells him he is carrying two invisible mountains, one behind him called the past, and one in front of him called the future. The past is made of every what if and every regret, dragged along like a heavy chain. The future is made of every worry and every plan, pushed forward like a massive boulder. But where is the past right now? Can you touch it? Where is the future? It is only a thought arising in this moment. When the traveler realizes his mountains are made of nothing but air, he laughs. It is the laughter of a child seeing through a magic trick. We trust our thoughts far too much, yet they are only visitors. They arrive, they stay for a heartbeat, and they vanish. They are not the sky, they are just the clouds. Even in our quietest moments, a subtle "in order to" runs beneath our peace. We are being present in order to feel better, or in order to reach a state of enlightenment. This is the craving for becoming, the feeling that this moment is just a stepping stone to a better one. But the deepest teaching is to let go of even the present. Let go of the one who is trying to be mindful. Let go of the one who is trying to let go. When the building stops, when the sandcastle of the self isn't being rebuilt grain by grain, what is left? Not a void, but a fullness, a warmth that doesn't need a name. You are like a lotus flower. Your roots are in the mud of the word. Your stem is in the murky water of experience, but your heart blooms on the surface, clean and untouched. You don't need to leave the word to find this. You only need to see the dream while you are in it. As the night grows deeper and the shadows stretch long across the floor, ask yourself, if the one who is watching the dream is also part of the dream itself, then who is truly listening to these words? That question is not a riddle for your intellect to untangle, but an invitation to notice the simplest truth of your existence. Right now, in this very moment, there is a quiet, effortless knowing occurring within you. You might feel the gentle weight of your body pressing against the bed, the subtle warmth of the air on your skin, or perhaps a slight ache in your shoulders from the long hours of the day. You might hear the distant hum of the world outside, or the rhythmic sound of your own breathing. And as you listen, thoughts likely drift through your mind like thin clouds passing across a wide, autumnal sky. All of this is being known. Something in you is aware of every sensation, every sound, and every flickering thought. And that awareness, that silent witness, is not tired. It is not aching. It is not worried about tomorrow or burdened by yesterday. It is simply here, as it has always been, a luminous presence that remains untouched by the stories it observes. The Buddha once pointed his followers toward this direct, unadorned awareness with a teaching that is as stark as it is beautiful. He said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard. In the felt, there is only the felt. In the known, there is only the known." He was inviting us to step back from the elaborate dramas we weave and return to the raw, simple truth of our experience. Before we add our preferences, our judgments, or our complicated histories to what we perceive, there is just this: seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing. In that naked simplicity, there is a peace that is difficult to describe with words, but remarkably easy to taste. It is a peace that asks nothing of us. It does not demand that we change our circumstances, fix our bodies, or silence our restless minds. It simply invites us to notice what is already true, that you have been aware your entire life, through every peak of joy and every valley of sorrow, and that this knowing has never once been harmed by anything it has known. Consider for a moment the very first memory you can summon from your childhood. Perhaps it is the vibrant color of a toy, the soft touch of a hand, or the way the light fell across a wooden floor. That memory is known to you. Now, think of this exact moment. lying here in the stillness, listening to the cadence of this voice. This moment too is known. If you look closely, you will see that the knowing itself is identical. It has not aged a single day. It has not grown weary with the passing years. It was there at the very beginning, fresh and clear, and it is here now, unchanged and unconditioned by time. In the Zen tradition, this is sometimes called the original mind, or the beginner's mind. It is not the mind that has accumulated 1,000 lessons and is weighed down by the baggage of expertise. It is the mind that meets the world as if for the first time, every time. A great Zen teacher once remarked that in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. This original mind is not something you need to build or earn. It is what you are when you stop adding anything extra. To become no one is not to vanish into a void or to lose the essence of who you are. In a way, it is the very opposite. It is the discovery of what you have always been beneath the layers of effort, identity, and constant striving. It is the awareness that existed before you even learned your own name, the knowing that will remain long after the stories of this day have faded into the silence of sleep. When you let go of the frantic need to be someone, the one who is succeeding, the one who is failing, the one who is strong, or the one who is struggling, what remains is this luminous, simple awareness. And it is at peace. It has always been at peace. It is like a sky that holds every kind of weather without ever being disturbed by the storm. The clouds of anxiety may come and go, the rain of sadness may fall, and the sun of joy may break through, but the sky remains the sky. It does not argue with the clouds. It does not try to chase the sun. It simply holds it all with an effortless, boundless generosity. You can experience this right now through a practice so gentle it feels like resting. Whatever you are feeling in this moment, let it be there. If there is comfort, let it be. If there is discomfort or a lingering tension, let that be there too. You do not need to change a single thing. Now, very gently, turn your attention away from what is being felt and toward the awareness that is doing the feeling. Instead of focusing on the sensation, notice the space in which the sensation appears. What is that space like? Is it heavy or light? Is it troubled by the sensation, or is it perfectly still? Most people, when they truly look, find that awareness itself is remarkably quiet and at ease. It is the space in which the weather of your life moves, but it is not made of the same stuff as the weather. As the Buddha reminded us, all conditioned things are impermanent. The warmth, the cold, the pleasure, and the pain. But the awareness in which they appear is not a conditioned thing. It does not come and go. It is simply here, the beginning of a very deep rest that comes from discovering that something in you is already well and has always been well, no matter what. There is a small and wonderful story that illustrates how we often lose sight of this sky. It begins not with a wise sage or a noble king, but with an ordinary bird in a wide gravel parking lot. It was a warm afternoon, and the meditation practitioner was walking slowly back and forth, practicing the art of being present, when they noticed a small bird land near the bumper of a parked car. The metal of the bumper was polished to a mirror-like shine. The bird, seeing its own reflection, believed it was looking at a rival, another bird encroaching on its territory. With its wings out and its beak forward, the bird flew straight at the bumper, full of determination and fire. It hit the hard metal, bounced off, and landed on the gravel, momentarily stunned. But when it looked up, the other bird was still there, staring back with equal defiance. So it flew at the bumper again, and again, and again. The practitioner, watching this scene, felt a wave of tenderness for the little creature. It was so earnest, so committed, so utterly convinced that what it was seeing was a solid, external reality. And yet, it was fighting nothing but its own reflection. There was no other bird. There never had been. There was only a polished surface throwing back an image and a small, determined heart that could not tell the difference. We might smile at the bird, but how often do we do the very same thing? We see something in the world, in another person, or even within ourselves, and we react to it as if it were the absolute, certain truth. We argue with it, we worry about it, and we build entire worlds of suffering around it. Very often, what we are reacting to is merely a reflection, a projection of our own fears, old habits, and hidden lenses landing on the polished surface of the world and staring back at us as if it were real. The Buddha had a specific name for this tendency, papancha, which is often translated as mental proliferation. It describes the way the mind takes a single, simple event, a look, a word, a sound, and spins it into an elaborate, multi-layered story. We see a certain expression on a friend's face, and within seconds, we have decided exactly what they are thinking, why they are upset with us, and what we should say in our defense. We have created a fortress out of a shadow. We take what we see through the lenses of our wants and worries and treat it as the simple truth, forgetting that the tint belongs to our glasses, not the world. This is not to say the world is unreal, but to recognize that much of the tension we feel is not actually out there. It is in the lens. It is in the filter we are looking through without realizing there is a filter at all. Consider how this happens in our relationships with the people around us. Imagine attending a quiet gathering, perhaps a dinner where you don't know many of the guests. As you look around the room, your mind begins to work almost immediately, quietly sorting and labeling everyone it sees. You spot a person sitting alone in the corner with a very still, composed expression, and a thought arises. That person seems cold, perhaps even judgmental. You see another person laughing brightly in the center of a group and think, they must be incredibly confident. They probably have an easy life. You see someone looking down at their hands and decide, they look so sad and lonely. 3 people, 3 stories, and not a single word has been exchanged. The person in the corner might actually be paralyzed by shyness, hoping someone will offer a kind word. The person laughing might be masking a profound heartache with noise. The person looking at their hands might be experiencing a moment of perfect, silent contentment. We almost never know the truth of another's inner world, yet we relate to the stories we've made up about them as if those stories were the people themselves. We are friendly to the ones whose stories we like, and distant from the ones whose stories make us uneasy, all while the actual person remains unseen, waiting behind the curtain of our projections. As the evening at this imagined gathering progresses, a shift begins to occur. You find yourself sitting near the person from the corner, the one you had labeled as cold and unfriendly. Because the air has grown soft and the conversation has turned toward more personal things, you find the courage to speak to them. You expect a short, icy response, but instead, they turn toward you with an expression of such genuine, startling warmth that your entire internal narrative begins to tremble. They admit in a voice barely above a whisper, how nervous they were to come tonight, and how much they worry that their silence makes people think they don't want to be there. In that single moment of honest connection, the cold stranger vanishes, and in their place is a person who is shy, hopeful, and remarkably like yourself. You realize that for hours you had been fighting a reflection in a bumper, and as the story dissolves, you are left wondering what else you might have misjudged with such absolute certainty. Walking home afterward, there is a kind of wonder in it. You feel a lightness in your chest, a quiet joy that comes from the simple realization of how wrong the story was, how completely and confidently wrong. This is a moment we have all experienced, and if we are lucky, we will experience it again and again. It is the moment when the real person finally meets us, and the story we had so carefully constructed dissolves like morning mist in the rising sunlight. In that brief, crystalline second, we see clearly. We see someone as they actually are, stripped of our expectations and our labels. And almost always, what we find in that clarity is something far more interesting, more complex, and more lovable than the flat, two-dimensional character we had invented in our minds. There is a line from the ancient Buddhist teachings that captures this perfectly. It says, "In the scene, let there be just the scene." It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just seeing before the stories start. Just hearing before the interpretations begin. Just this person sitting in front of us, before the heavy weight of our judgments descends. It is an invitation to return to a state of directness, a way of being that is as fresh as a child's first look at the world. The difficulty, of course, is not in the doing of it. The difficulty is in the remembering. We forget that we are storytellers. We forget that we are constantly narrating a world that is already complete without our commentary. There is a beautiful teaching that speaks to this directly. It is the understanding that what we call seeing is rarely just seeing. What we call hearing is rarely just hearing, almost always layered on top of the raw, vibrant experience of life. There is a thin, transparent film of interpretation. This film is made of our preferences, our old memories, our deep-seated habits, and our unspoken fears. It is so thin and so clear that we look right through it every day without ever knowing it is there. We mistake the film for the world. Imagine for a moment that you are wearing a pair of tinted glasses. You have had them on for so long, perhaps since you were a very small child, that you have completely forgotten you are wearing them. Everything you see has a slight color to it, a subtle warmth or a lingering coolness that you take to be the actual color of the world. You walk through a lush garden and believe the flowers are a certain shade of red. You look up at the vast sky and think it is a specific, immutable blue. You look at the faces of the people you love most in this world, and you are certain you are seeing them with perfect clarity. And in a sense, you are seeing, but you are seeing through something. You do not know the tint is there until one day, someone very gently asks you, "Have you noticed the glasses?" In that quiet moment of inquiry, you reach up. You feel the frames resting on the bridge of your nose. You feel the weight of them against your temples. And you realize with a start, oh, the world is not this color. I am this color. The tint is mine. That moment of recognition is one of the most freeing experiences a human being can have. It is not because the glasses immediately fall off and the world suddenly becomes pure and clear. It is because the recognition itself loosens the grip of the story. It introduces a little bit of space, a breath of air, between what we see and what we believe about what we see. And in that space, something wonderful becomes possible. We can meet the world and the people in it a little more freshly. We can be a little more honest. We can stand just a little closer to how things actually are, rather than how our old habits have painted them over. The glasses we wear are made of many things. They are polished by old experiences, by the things we were told about ourselves when we were young, by the hurts we have carried like stones in our pockets, and by preferences we have held so long they feel like hard facts. Recognizing them doesn't mean we have to throw them all away in a fit of frustration. It simply means we know they are there. And that knowing, that simple, honest awareness, changes everything. It is the difference between being lost in a dream and knowing that you're dreaming. This is connected in a very tender way to everything we have been exploring tonight. When we begin to notice the lenses, when we begin to see that so much of what we react to is merely our own reflection in the bumper, something in us starts to soften. The urgency begins to fade. The desperate need to be right, to judge, to sort every person we meet into categories of good and bad, safe and dangerous. It all starts to loosen. In that loosening, something interesting happens to our sense of self. So much of who we think we are is actually built out of these reactions. We define ourselves by our stances. I am the one who likes this person and dislikes that one. I am the one who was treated unfairly. I am the one who is better than some and worse than others. But if you take away the reactions, what is left? What remains is something much lighter, something simpler, something closer to just being here, seeing what is here, without all the extra weight of the I that needs to have an opinion on everything. There is a story from the Zen tradition about an old teacher who was known for an unusual, almost otherworldly kind of calm. Nothing seemed to disturb this teacher. Good news, bad news, praise or harsh criticism, all of it was met with the same gentle, steady presence. One day, a student, frustrated by their own turbulent mind, asked, "Teacher, how is it that nothing seems to affect you? Do you not have opinions? Do you not see the chaos happening around you?" The teacher looked at the student and said, "I see very clearly, perhaps more clearly than I ever have before. But I have stopped adding anything to what I see." The student considered this, puzzled. "What do you mean, adding?" "When I was younger," the teacher explained, "I would see a rainy day and immediately add the thought, 'This is a bad day.' I would meet a person and add the thought, 'This is a difficult person.' I would hear criticism and add the thought, 'I am not enough.' Now I simply see the rain. I meet the person, I hear the words, but I have stopped adding the stories. And without the adding, everything is much simpler. Everything is much more peaceful." This is what the old Zen masters meant when they spoke of just seeing. Another student once asked a different teacher, "What is the essence of your teaching?" The teacher replied with a single word, "Attention." The student waited, expecting a long discourse or a complex philosophical explanation, but the teacher only said it again, "Attention, attention, attention." This isn't attention in the sense of straining or concentrating until your head aches. It is attention in the sense of seeing clearly what is actually here, before the mind adds its commentary, its judgments, its elaborate and exhausting stories. It is just seeing, just hearing, just being present with what is, exactly as it is. We already know how to do this. We do it naturally when we are in the presence of great beauty, a sunset that sets the clouds on fire, the sight of a sleeping child, or a night sky so full of stars that it takes your breath away. In those moments, the mind grows quiet on its own. We stop adding, we stop judging, we just see. And for that moment, everything is whole and complete. Nothing needs to be changed. Nothing needs to be fixed. The glasses come off without any effort at all. The invitation of this path is simply to notice that this kind of seeing is available to us always, not just in moments of grand beauty, but in the ordinary moments, the difficult moments, even the moments when the bird in us is flying at the bumper again. We can notice the impulse. We can smile at the confusion. We can feel the tenderness of being a creature that sometimes gets lost in its own reflection. And in that noticing, we are already seeing more clearly. We discover what the bird at the bumper never could, that the reflection is not real. The other bird was never there. There is nothing to fight, nothing to attack, and nothing to defend against. There is only this moment, and it is, in its own quiet way, enough. As you rest here tonight, you might notice, perhaps tomorrow, or in the coming days, a moment when a quick judgment arises about someone. A story begins to form. A reaction starts to bubble up. And in that moment, you might remember the bird. You might feel a gentle smile touch your lips. You might wonder, just for a second, am I seeing clearly? Or am I seeing my own reflection? You don't even need to answer the question. Just asking it is enough. Just noticing is enough. The glasses begin to come off all by themselves, one gentle moment at a time. Let us pause here for a moment. Let the stories settle like leaves drifting down to rest on the surface of still water. And when you're ready, we will continue together. Think for a moment about the last time you wanted something. It doesn't have to be anything grand or life-changing. Maybe it was a warm drink on a cold afternoon. Maybe it was a quiet evening after a long, noisy week. Maybe it was just the wish for a few more minutes of sleep this morning. Something simple, something ordinary. Now, if you can, try to recall not the thing you wanted, but the wanting itself. What did it feel like in your body? Was there a tightness in your chest? A kind of leaning forward in your thoughts? A reaching? And then, when you finally got the thing, or when the wanting simply faded away on its own, what was that moment like? Most of us have never been asked to look at wanting in this way. We spend our entire lives wanting things, one after another, like beads on a string. But we almost never turn around to look at the wanting itself. Tonight, we are going to do just that, and what we find may surprise us. There is a belief that almost all of us share, a belief so deep and so natural that it hardly feels like a belief at all. It feels like a fundamental fact of gravity. The belief is this: pleasant experiences are good, and unpleasant experiences are bad. It seems so reasonable, doesn't it? Of course we want what is pleasant. Of course we avoid what is painful. Isn't that just common sense? The Buddha thought about this very carefully, and what he found was both gentle and radical. He didn't say that pleasant experiences are wrong. He didn't say we should seek out suffering or deny ourselves comfort. What he said was something much more subtle. He said that as long as there is an intense attachment to the pleasant and a constant turning away from the unpleasant, the deepest kind of peace will always remain just out of reach. He wasn't describing a punishment, he was describing a pattern, a wheel. Let us look at this wheel together, gently, without any pressure to fix it. It usually goes like this. Something pleasant arises, a beautiful meal, a kind word, a moment of physical comfort. It feels good, truly good, and so we enjoy it. But then, as all things do, it changes. The meal ends, the kind word fades into the past, the comfort shifts. Because everything, without exception, is in motion. When the pleasant moment passes, something in us immediately reaches for the next one. We are already looking ahead, fueled by a quiet hunger for the next good feeling, the next reassurance that things are okay. When we find it, we enjoy it, it changes, and we reach again and again and again. The ancient teachers called this a wheel, and it is a hauntingly accurate image. It is like the wheel a small animal runs on, always moving, never arriving, always reaching, and never quite satisfied. There's a profound exhaustion in it, a tiredness that has nothing to do with the physical body and everything to do with the weight of always wanting the next thing. Let us explore a story about this. In a village at the edge of a green valley, there lived a potter who made beautiful bowls and cups. The workshop was a quiet place with wooden shelves lining the walls and the warm, earthy smell of clay always in the air. This potter was good at the craft and took genuine pleasure in the work. There was something deeply satisfying about shaping the clay, about watching a rough lump slowly become something graceful and useful under patient hands. But the potter had a habit. After finishing each piece, placing it carefully on the shelf to dry, there would be a brief moment of satisfaction, a warm feeling of completion, a quiet sense of, yes, that is good. And then, almost immediately, a thought would arise, so familiar it was practically a companion. The next one will be even better. So the potter would begin again, and the next piece would come out beautifully, perhaps even more beautiful than the last. And there would be that brief moment of warmth, and then, again, the next one. Always the next one. And so the shelves filled up, row after row of lovely bowls and cups. And still, there was this restless feeling that the truly satisfying one had not yet been made. One afternoon, a traveling monk passed through the village and stopped to admire the pottery displayed outside the workshop. The monk picked up a small tea bowl and turned it slowly, feeling the weight of it, the smoothness of the glaze. "These are wonderful," the monk said. "There is real care in these. You must find great happiness in your work." The potter came to the doorway, wiping clay from both hands, and considered this. "I enjoy it," the potter said slowly, "but I am not sure I would call it happiness. There is always the feeling that I have not yet made the one I am really looking for, as if the right bowl is always just ahead of me, and I am always just behind it." The monk set the tea bowl down gently. "May I ask you something? That feeling, the one that says the next one will be the one that satisfies. Have you ever stopped to notice what it feels like? Not the bowl it promises, not the future satisfaction it hints at, but the feeling itself, right now, in your body, in your chest. The potter frowned slightly, as if the question were in a language not quite familiar. I suppose it feels like a kind of restlessness, a tightness, almost like a hand gripping something. Yes, the monk said, and when you finish a bowl, and for that one brief moment before the next urge arises, before the hand begins to grip again, what does that moment feel like? The potter thought about this for a long time, standing in the doorway with the afternoon light falling softly across the workshop floor. It feels like relief, the potter said at last. Like putting something down, something I did not realize I was carrying. Yes, the monk said, smiling. That is the taste of peace. Not in the bowl, not in the next one, not in anything you can make or find or hold. It is in the putting down. The potter sat with this for a long time after the monk continued down the road. And though the potter went on making bowls and making them with the same care and love as before, something had shifted. Sometimes, in the gap between finishing one piece and beginning the next, the potter would simply sit with the feeling of having put something down, not doing anything, not reaching for anything, just sitting in the quiet of the workshop, listening to the birds outside, feeling the warmth of the afternoon. And that quiet gap, that small moment of not reaching for anything at all, began to feel like the most precious thing in the workshop, more precious even than the most beautiful bowl on the shelf. This is what the Buddha was pointing to again and again with such patience and compassion.
The peace we are searching for is not in the next pleasant experience. It is in the gap. It is in the moment when wanting falls quiet. And we have all tasted this, even if we did not have a name for it. Think of a time when you were truly at ease. Not excited, not thrilled, just at ease. Perhaps you were sitting somewhere peaceful, with nowhere to go and nothing to do. Perhaps the evening was warm and you had just finished everything that needed doing, and there was simply nothing left to want. What was that like? If you remember, it was not a dramatic feeling. It was not fireworks or bliss. It was more like a deep exhale, a softness, a settling. The mind was not reaching for anything, and in that not reaching, there was a sweetness that asked for nothing in return. That is the peace the Buddha was talking about. It is not far away. It is not reserved for saints or monks or people with extraordinary willpower. It is here every time the wanting stops, even for a moment. We simply do not notice it because we are so quickly off to the next thing, like someone standing in a beautiful garden, looking at a map to the next garden. Here's a small experiment that the ancient teachers loved. You do not need to try it now, you are resting and that is enough. But you might remember it sometime on some ordinary afternoon. The next time you notice a desire arising, something you want, it can be as small as wanting a snack or wanting to check your messages. See if you can pause before acting on it. Not to deny yourself, not to push it away, just to pause and notice. What does the wanting feel like? Where is it in your body? Is there a tightness, a leaning, a kind of heat? And then wait. Because the desire will change. It always does. It might get stronger for a moment and then it will begin to soften. And at a certain point, it will fade. And in that moment of fading, there is a gap, a breath of openness. The hand that was gripping has opened, and if you are paying attention, you will notice that the gap feels remarkably like peace. Not the peace of getting what you wanted, but something quieter than that, something that does not depend on anything.
It is the peace the Buddha called the happiness of renunciation. Though that word, renunciation, makes it sound much more severe than it is really just the happiness of putting something down, the happiness of an open hand. Now, it might seem as though the Buddha was asking something impossible, to let go of all attachment, to stop wanting entirely. Who can do that? And if we frame it that way, as some enormous mountain to climb, it does feel impossible. It feels like a demand that no ordinary person could ever meet.
But there is a gentler way to understand this teaching, and it is the way the ancient teachers themselves often spoke of it. They called it short moments, many times. We do not need to free ourselves from all wanting forever. We only need to notice in this moment what wanting feels like, and then to notice what it feels like when the wanting fades. Just this moment, just this one small noticing. And then, perhaps later today or tomorrow, another small noticing, and another. Each one of these small noticings is a taste of freedom. Not freedom from the world, not freedom from experience, but freedom from the grip, freedom from the wheel. And each taste, however brief, leaves a kind of imprint on the heart. Oh, this is what it feels like to not want anything. Oh, this is rest. The mind begins to learn, not through force or discipline, but through its own gentle curiosity, that there is something sweeter than getting what we want, and that something is the peace of not wanting at all. There is a teaching that comes from this understanding, and it is one of the most hopeful things the Buddhist tradition has to offer. It is simply this: the mind can be trained. Most people live as if the mind is fixed, as if the habits we have, the patterns of wanting and worrying and reacting, are just part of who we are, permanent as the color of our eyes. That is just how I am, we say. I have always been this way. But the Buddha saw something different. He saw that the mind is not fixed. It is fluid. It is always being shaped, always being influenced by what we pay attention to and by how we pay attention. And because of this, we have a choice. Not a forced choice, not something grim or effortful, but a soft, natural choice. We can begin to notice the patterns that cause us difficulty, the ones that keep us on the wheel, and we can gently, patiently, with great kindness toward ourselves, begin to let them soften. There is an old story about a traveler who came to a teacher and said, "I have 2 wolves living inside me. One is peaceful and kind. The other is restless and always wanting. They are always fighting. Which one will win?" And the teacher replied, "The one you feed." It is a simple story, but it carries something true. We are always feeding one wolf or the other. Every time we chase a desire without noticing, we feed the restless wolf. Every time we pause, even for a breath, and notice the peace that is already here, we feed the peaceful one. And slowly, over time, with no great drama, the balance shifts. Not because we forced it, but because we paid attention. This is not about becoming someone who never wants anything. It is not about flattening life into a grey, joyless neutrality. It is about discovering that we have been gripping far more tightly than we needed to, and that when we loosen the grip even a little, life does not become less vivid. It becomes more vivid, more spacious, more free. The colors do not fade when we stop grasping at them. If anything, they grow richer because we are finally seeing them clearly without the tint of wanting laid over everything. The Buddha once said, "Just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so this teaching has one taste, the taste of freedom." That freedom is not something we need to go looking for. It is what naturally arises when we stop holding on so tightly. And this brings us back, very gently, to the theme that has been with us all evening. When we stop gripping, when we stop reaching, when we allow the wanting to quiet down, what happens to the one who is doing all the wanting? That busy, striving, never quite satisfied self begins to grow transparent. It does not vanish, it simply gets lighter, quieter, less solid, less like something we need to defend, and more like something we can set down. And in its place, or rather underneath it, we find something that was here all along. That same open, spacious awareness we touched in the first part of our journey tonight. It was never missing, it was just obscured by all the reaching, like a clear sky that was always there behind the clouds. The clouds were never the sky, and the wanting was never who we are. To become no one is not an achievement, it is a relief. It is the moment when the potter puts the tools down and sits in the quiet of the workshop, listening to the birds, feeling the warmth of the afternoon on the wooden floor, and realizes, oh, this is what I was making all those bowls to find. Not a more perfect bowl, not a better version of myself, just this peace, this stillness, this feeling of enough, which was here all along, waiting patiently beneath the reaching. Let us rest here for a moment. Let the words settle. Let the mind be easy. And when you are ready, we will continue together. Have you ever woken up inside a dream? It happens to some people now and then. You are moving through the landscape of the dream, perhaps walking down a street that feels both familiar and strange at the same time. You notice a detail, a color that is a bit too vivid, a shadow that falls the wrong way, or a doorway that leads somewhere impossible. And suddenly, a realization ripples through you. I am dreaming. This is a dream. And what happens next is truly remarkable. The dream does not shatter. You do not wake up in your bed startled and breathless. You stay right there. The street remains. The colors are still bright. The feeling of the ground is solid beneath your feet. But everything has shifted in a fundamental way. There is a lightness now, an immense spaciousness. You are still in the dream, but you are no longer caught by it. You can move through it with a kind of ease and playfulness that was not there before. The urgency is gone. The fear is gone, because you know, even as you walk through it, that it is a dream. The Buddhist tradition suggests that something very much like this is available to us in our waking life. Not as a fantasy, not as a way of pretending the world does not matter, but as a way of holding our experience more gently, more lightly, with less of the heaviness that comes from believing everything is as solid and fixed as it appears to be. There is a teaching from the Buddha that is remarkable for its simplicity. He once described the entirety of human experience in just 6 short phrases. He said, "The eye and what is seen, the ear and what is heard, the nose and what is smelled, the tongue and what is tasted, the body and what is felt, the mind and what is thought." And then he asked with a kind of quiet confidence, "Is there anything else? Is there anything in your experience, anything at all, that falls outside of these 6? If you sit with this for a moment, it is quite striking. We live such complicated lives. We carry such elaborate stories about ourselves and the world.
We worry about a future that hasn't arrived and carry a past that has already left us. We navigate relationships and responsibilities and 1,000 small decisions every day. And yet all of it, every single moment, is simply one of these 6 things happening. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, thinking. That is all that is ever going on.
It is like discovering that the vast, complex novel of your life is actually written with only 6 letters. The stories feel endless and intricate, but the alphabet is astonishingly simple. And this simplicity is not a reduction, it is a homecoming. When we see it, something in us finally exhales. Because the complicated version of life, the one with all the stories and the worries and the tangled relationships, that version is exhausting to maintain. It takes tremendous energy to keep all those plates spinning, to keep the narrative of me going. But the simple version, the one that says, right now there is hearing, right now there is feeling, right now there is knowing. That version asks almost nothing of us. It is already happening. We do not even need to do it. It is doing itself. Let us sit with this for a moment, because there is something deeply restful in it.
Right now, as you are lying here or resting, what is actually happening? Perhaps there's the sound of this voice reaching your ears. Perhaps there's the feeling of your body against the surface beneath you, the weight and warmth of it. Perhaps there's the faint hum of a room or the quiet of the night outside. Perhaps there are thoughts drifting through, soft and unhurried. That is all. That is everything. There's nothing else happening right now besides these simple streams of experience. And they are flowing on their own. You are not making the sounds happen. You are not generating the sensations. They are rising all by themselves like ripples on the surface of a pond. And they are passing all by themselves, making room for the next ripple. You could stop trying entirely and the whole show would go on without you. The hearing would continue, the feeling would continue, the breathing would continue. It has never needed your supervision. It has been flowing beautifully on its own since the day you were born. When we see this, when we really notice how simple and how effortless our experience actually is, something begins to relax. The feeling that we need to manage everything, to control everything, to hold it all together, it starts to ease. Because we begin to see that it is already holding together. It is already flowing. It has been flowing long before we started trying to direct it, and it will go on flowing long after we stop. This is what the Buddhist teachers mean when they speak of life as being dreamlike. They are not saying that life is meaningless or that nothing matters. They are saying something much more tender than that. They are saying that the solidity we attribute to things, the heaviness, the fixedness, is something we are adding. The experience itself is light. It is fluid. It is always moving, always changing, like images in a dream. Let us explore a story about this. There was a teacher who lived near a river in a small hut surrounded by tall grasses and wild flowers. The hut was plain, just one room with a low table and a few cushions, but the door was always open, and from inside you could hear the steady murmur of the water. Students would visit, sometimes from nearby villages, sometimes from much further away, and this teacher had a habit of taking them on walks along the riverbank as they talked. There was something about walking beside flowing water that seemed to make difficult questions easier to hold. One afternoon, Late in the season, when the trees along the bank were just beginning to turn gold, a student arrived, looking troubled. This student had been practicing for some time and had heard many teachings, but something was not settling. "Teacher," the student said as they began their walk along the water, "I have been trying to understand this idea that life is like a dream, but it does not feel like a dream to me. It feels very real. My problems feel real. My worries feel real. When I disagree with someone I care about, the hurt feels real. When I lose something, the grief feels real. How can I see it as a dream when it feels so solid?" The teacher nodded, and they walked in silence for a while, letting the sound of the water fill the space between them. A kingfisher flashed across the surface, a dart of blue and orange, and disappeared into the reeds on the far bank. Then the teacher pointed to the river. "Tell me, what do you see?" "Water," the student said. "I see the river flowing." "Look more carefully. Do you see the same water you saw a moment ago?" The student looked. "No, it has moved on. New water has taken its place." And a moment before that, different water again. It is always different water. "So," the teacher said gently, "is it the same river?" The student hesitated. "It looks like the same river. It has the same banks, the same shape, the same sound, but the water is always new." "Yes, and your life is like that. It looks solid. It looks like the same life from day to day, the same name, the same face in the mirror, the same relationships, the same worries, the same self. But if you look closely, everything is flowing. The thoughts you had this morning are not the thoughts you have now. The sensations in your body have already changed 10 times since we began this walk. Even the person who is worrying is not quite the same person who was worrying an hour ago. It is all flowing like the river. And when you see that, when you really feel it in your body and not just understand it with your mind, you can hold it all much more gently. Not because it does not matter, but because you see that it is not as heavy as you thought. It is not as permanent as you feared. They walked a little further, and the student noticed something. The late afternoon sunlight was falling on the water at a low angle, and the surface was alive with patterns, bright flashes and shifting ripples, constantly moving, never repeating. No two moments were the same. And for a moment, just a moment, the student felt it. The lightness, the sense that everything was in motion, that nothing was stuck, and that this was not frightening, but beautiful. It was like watching a dream from the inside, knowing it was a dream, and finding it lovely rather than alarming. "There," the teacher said softly, as if reading the student's face. "That is what we mean. When we begin to see life this way, something unexpected happens. Rather than making us cold or distant or detached, this understanding opens the heart. It makes us more compassionate, not less. This might seem strange at first. If everything is flowing, if it is all dreamlike, why would we feel more for others? Would we not feel less? But the opposite is true, and here is why. When we believe the world is solid and fixed, we tend to live with a certain tightness. We are protecting our territory, guarding our position, defending our view of things. There is not much room for others in that kind of living. We are too busy managing our own solidity. But when we begin to see the flowing nature of things, when we begin to hold our own experience more lightly, something opens up. We notice the people around us with new eyes.
we see that they, too, are caught in the dream. They, too, are reacting to reflections. They, too, are on the wheel of wanting, reaching for the next moment of comfort, pulling away from difficulty. And we feel for them, not with pity, which looks down, but with compassion, which looks across, eye to eye, heart to heart, recognizing, I know what this is like. I know how it feels. There is a story about this. A teacher was walking with a student through a busy market town. People were rushing in every direction, calling out, bargaining, carrying heavy loads, arguing over prices. The noise was tremendous. The air was thick with the smell of spices, dust, and the heat of the afternoon. The student felt overwhelmed by the chaos. "How can you be so calm in all this?" the student asked. The teacher looked around at the bustling crowd with the softest expression, almost like a parent watching children play. "I see the same things you see," the teacher said. "But I also see something else. I see that everyone here is dreaming. They believe this is all solid and permanent, that the things they are chasing will satisfy them, that the things they are avoiding are truly dangerous. And because they believe this, they suffer. And because I can see the dream for what it is, my heart goes out to them. Not because they are foolish, but because I have been exactly where they are, and I know how it feels." The student looked at the crowd again, and for a moment, just a brief moment, instead of noise and chaos, what the student saw was a room full of people doing their very best. Each one was trying to find happiness in the only way they knew how. And something in the student's chest softened. The Buddha said, "Just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings." This kind of love does not come from effort. It does not come from trying to be a good person. It comes from seeing clearly. When the dream becomes transparent, when we see through the apparent solidity of things, the natural response is tenderness. We see that everyone, without exception, is doing their best inside a dream they do not quite understand, and we feel a warmth toward them that asks for nothing in return. There is a beautiful image in the Buddhist tradition of someone who is both in the world and free of the world at the same time. Think of the lotus flower. It grows from the mud, its roots buried deep in the dark, murky depths of a pond, where the water is thick and still. The stem must rise through those murky depths, pushing upward through the silt and the shadows. Yet when it reaches the top, the flower itself blooms on the surface, open and clean, untouched by the mud below. It does not resent the mud. It does not wish the mud away or pretend the dark water does not exist. It grows from the mud. It needs the mud to become what it is. But it is not the mud. This is perhaps the most beautiful thing about the dreamlike teaching. It does not ask us to reject our lives. It does not ask us to pretend that our difficulties are not real or that our joys do not matter. It simply invites us to hold all of it more lightly, to be the lotus, to grow from exactly where we are, through whatever murky water surrounds us, and to bloom without the weight of the depths clinging to our petals. We do not need to leave the world to find this peace. We do not need to escape our lives or become someone other than who we are. We only need to see clearly. We need to notice the dream while we are in the middle of it. We need to feel the flow while we are part of the current. To remember, even as we walk through a crowded market, even as we sit with our heaviest worries, even as we love and lose and try again, that all of this is passing through like water through a river, like images through a dream. And this seeing, this quiet noticing, is itself a kind of becoming no one. Because the one who needs everything to be solid, the one who needs to be right, the one who needs the world to hold still so they can feel safe, that one begins to dissolve. Not painfully, not with any sense of loss, but the way a cloud dissolves in a warm sky, gently, naturally, leaving nothing behind but openness. And in that openness, life goes on. The river keeps flowing. The sounds keep arriving at your ears. The sensations keep rising and falling in your body. But there is no one gripping any of it anymore. There is just this flowing, luminous, dreamlike moment. And it is enough. It has always been enough.
There is a verse from the old teachings that captures this beautifully. It says, "As a star, a visual fault, a lamp, an illusion, dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, so should one see all that is conditioned. A star that fades at dawn, a bubble that pops in the sun, a dream that vanishes upon waking, not because these things are nothing, but because they are precious and brief and shining, just like everything else we experience. When we see our lives this way, we can hold them the way we might hold a soap bubble resting in an open palm, gently, carefully, with wonder, not with worry. We know it will not last, and we find ourselves loving it all the more for that very reason. It is the passing that makes it beautiful. It is the fleeting nature of the moment that makes it dear. This is the freedom of the dream. Not a cold freedom, not an empty freedom, but a warm, tender, wide-open freedom where everything is held lightly and everything is loved completely. We can walk through our lives the way we might walk through a sunlit garden in a dream, fully present, fully alive, fully at ease, knowing that we are held by something much vaster than the dream itself. Let us rest here for a moment. Let everything be just as it is, and when you are ready, we will continue together. Right now, as you listen to these words, something else is happening in your mind. Beneath the listening, below the surface of your attention, a quiet stream is flowing. It has been flowing all day. It flows when you are busy and when you are still, when you are awake, and even, in its own way, when you are asleep. It is so constant and so quiet that you probably do not notice it is there. It is the stream of your thoughts, not the big thoughts, not the dramatic ones that announce themselves and demand all your attention, not the worries that keep you up at night or the plans that occupy your entire morning. Those are the waves on the surface, the ones everyone notices because they crash and spray. But beneath them, there is a much quieter current. Tiny thoughts, light as dust, little flickers of memory, fragments of imagined conversation, passing opinions, brief flashes of planning. They come and they go in seconds, sometimes faster than seconds, and most of them leave no trace at all. And yet, quiet as they are, these small passing thoughts are doing something remarkable. They are building something. Without our knowing it, without our permission, they are constructing, moment by moment, the feeling of being someone. This is one of the most fascinating things the Buddhist teachers ever noticed. They observed that the sense of self, the feeling of being me, is not a solid thing. It is not like a stone sitting in the center of our experience. It is more like a sand castle being built and rebuilt, grain by grain, thought by thought, all day long. And the grains are these tiny, barely noticed thoughts. If you were to catch one of these thoughts and look at it, you would find that most of them are about me, in one way or another. A memory of something you said yesterday, a brief imagining of something that might happen tomorrow,
a fleeting comparison with someone you saw on the street, a passing evaluation of how things are going for you. Me and my past, me and my future, me and how I measure up. Each one lasts only a moment. Each one is lighter than a feather. But together, unnoticed, they weave a kind of fabric, and that fabric is what we experience as the self. The Buddha once said, "With our thoughts, we make the world."
It is one of the most quoted lines in all of Buddhism, and it is often understood as a grand philosophical statement about the nature of reality. But it is also, and perhaps more importantly, a very precise observation about what is happening in our minds right now, this very moment, as these small, light, unremarkable thoughts quietly go about their work. Let us look at this a little more closely, because there is something wonderfully liberating in what we find. Most of these passing thoughts, if we were to sort them, would fall into one of two categories. They are either about the past or about the future. I said this, she said that. I need to do this. What if that happens? Yesterday, tomorrow, last week, next month. The mind is endlessly traveling backward and forward along a timeline, visiting places that do not, strictly speaking, exist. And that is the key. That is the liberating part. What is the past, really?
Not as a concept, not as a word, but as an experience. If you look carefully, you will find that the past is a thought arising right now. A memory surfaces, an image appears, a feeling returns, and we label it past, and we feel as though we are reaching back to some other time, some other place. But we are not reaching anywhere. We are here. The thought is here. It is arising now, in this moment, and it will pass like all thoughts do. And the future? It is the same. A plan appears in the mind, a worry, a hope, a fantasy, and we label it future. And we feel as though we are reaching forward, peering through a window into some time that has not yet come. But there is no window. There is just a thought. Here, now, light as air, already dissolving. There was once a traveler crossing a wide open plain on foot. The land was flat in every direction, golden grasses stretching out to meet a vast and cloudless sky. The air was clean. A gentle wind moved through the grass. It should have been easy walking, a pleasant journey across beautiful country. But this traveler was struggling. Every step seemed heavy. Every mile felt like 10. And the strange thing was, there was nothing visibly wrong. No injury, no heavy pack. Just a weariness that seemed to come from nowhere. A hermit who lived in a small shelter at the edge of the plain saw the traveler passing and called out, "Friend, you look weary. Sit down for a moment. Have some water." The traveler sat gratefully, and for a while they shared the quiet. Then the hermit asked, "Tell me, what are you carrying? You walk as if you have a great weight on your shoulders." The traveler looked down at empty hands. "I am not carrying anything. That is the strange part. My hands are empty. I have nothing with me, and yet I feel so heavy." The hermit nodded slowly, as if this were the most familiar thing in the world. "Let me tell you what I see," the hermit said gently. "I think you are carrying 2 mountains. You cannot see them because they are not made of stone, but they are there. One is behind you, and one is in front of you, and together they are enormous." The traveler looked uncertain. "2 mountains? The one behind you," the hermit said, "is called the past. It is made of everything that has already happened, every conversation you replay, every moment you wish had gone differently, every road you chose and wonder about,
and every road you did not choose and wonder about even more. It stretches back as far as your memory reaches, and you've been dragging it behind you your whole life. The traveler was quiet for a long time. And the one in front of you, the hermit continued, is called the future. It is made of everything that has not happened yet. Every plan, every worry, every scenario you have rehearsed in your mind.
Every imagined conversation. Every anticipated difficulty, every hope that things will turn out a certain way. It is just as vast as the one behind you, and you have been pushing it ahead of you, step by step, across this whole plain. But they feel so real, the traveler said softly. The things that happened, the things that might happen, they are real, are they not? Are they? The hermit said. Where is your past right now? Can you point to it? Can you touch it? The traveler reached back as if to feel for something there. There was nothing. It is a thought, the hermit said. It is a memory arising in your mind, right now, in this moment. It feels like a mountain because you have been carrying it so long. But pick it up and look at it closely. It is made of nothing heavier than air. The traveler sat very still, and then slowly something changed. A lightness came into the face, a breath deeper than any in hours, perhaps days. And then a laugh, a surprised, delighted laugh, like a child who has just been shown a magic trick and cannot quite believe it. There, the hermit said, smiling. How does that feel? Like I have been carrying bags of feathers, the traveler said, and believing they were stone. This is not just a pretty story. It is something we can actually feel for ourselves. And many people, when they first really see this, describe exactly that kind of laughter. The laughter of relief. The laughter of realizing that the weight they have been carrying, the weight of memory and worry, of regret and anticipation, was never as heavy as it seemed. It was heavy because they believed it was solid. The moment they see it is made of thought, it becomes light. Not gone, just light. Easy to hold, easy to set down. The Zen master Huang Po said, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." What he meant in his characteristically direct way is that we trust our thoughts far too much. We take them to be the absolute truth of things. But thoughts are just visitors. They arrive, they stay for a moment, and they leave. They are not us. They are not the world. They are clouds passing through the sky of awareness, which remains clear and open, regardless of what passes through it. There is one more kind of thought in this quiet stream that is worth noticing. We have spoken about thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future, but there are also thoughts that happen right here, in the present moment, that are just as quietly building the sense of self. These are the thoughts of comparison. We do this so naturally, so constantly, that it is almost like breathing. We see someone and we compare. Better than me, worse than me, about the same. It can be about anything: appearance, achievement, how calm someone seems, or how together their life looks. We are sorting, ranking, and measuring all day long, and each comparison is a tiny brick in the wall of the self. Let us explore this gently with a small scene. Imagine you are sitting in a quiet room with a group of people. Perhaps it is a waiting room or a gathering where everyone is settled and still. You look around and, without any effort or intention, the comparisons begin. There is someone who seems very composed, very serene,
and a thought arises. They have something I do not have. I wish I could be that calm. Then you see someone who seems restless, fidgeting, unable to settle, and another thought arises. At least I am doing better than that. I am more at ease. Then there is someone who appears about the same as you, neither more settled nor less, and the mind finds this curiously unsatisfying. Better than and worse than, those at least give us a position, a place to stand. But the same as leaves the self with nothing to work with. And so the mind keeps looking, keeps searching for a comparison that sticks. Better than, worse than, the same as. 3 small thoughts, each one lasting only a second or two, and each one, in that second, creating a self, creating a me who is being measured against the world. It is such a natural thing to do, so automatic, and yet so unnecessary. Because here is what is truly happening in that quiet room. Everyone is simply sitting. Everyone is simply being. The composed person might be anxious inside and hiding it well. The restless person might be working through something beautiful and important. You simply do not know. The comparison tells you nothing about them. It only tells you that the mind is building again, grain by grain, thought by thought, constructing a me out of thin air. The Buddha noticed this pattern with great precision. He spoke of it as one of the deepest habits of the mind, this constant measuring. I am better, I am worse, I am equal. His suggestion was not to fight it or to feel bad about it. His suggestion was simply to see it, to notice when the comparing mind is at work, because the moment we see it, something wonderful happens. The comparison loses its grip. It becomes just another thought, just another cloud passing through. And in the space it leaves behind, there is something much simpler and much more restful. Just being here, just sitting in the room, without needing to be better or worse or the same as anyone at all. Just being nobody in particular, just being here. There is a beautiful teaching from the Buddha that touches all of this, past, future, and present. He said, "Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present and cross over to the further shore." Let go of the present. That is an extraordinary thing to say. Most spiritual teachings tell us to be in the present, to stay here, to arrive in the now. And there is real wisdom in that. Coming back to this moment, letting go of the replaying and the rehearsing is one of the most healing things a person can do. But the Buddha went further. He said, let go of even this. Let go of the need to be here in any particular way. Let go of the comparing, the measuring, and the evaluating that happens even in the present moment. Let go of the one who is trying so hard to be present, because even being present can become another project. It can become another thing the self grabs hold of. I am being present now. I am doing this well. Am I present enough? The self can make a home anywhere, even in mindfulness itself. It can turn even stillness into a competition. So, the Buddha's instruction is wonderfully thorough. Let go of the past, yes. Let go of the future, yes. And then, with a gentle smile that you can almost hear across the centuries, let go of the present too. Let go of the one who is holding on. Let go of the one who is letting go. And what is left? The further shore, which is not a place. It is not somewhere you travel to. It is what is here when you stop adding anything, when you stop building the sandcastle grain by grain, when the quiet river of thought is still flowing, but you are no longer standing in it trying to direct the current. You are sitting on the bank, watching, resting, and the river flows on as rivers do. and you are at peace. Not because the thoughts have stopped, but because you are no longer mistaking them for who you are. This is perhaps the gentlest meaning of our journey tonight. To become no one is not to disappear. It is to stop building. It is to set down the mountains of past and future and let the comparisons drift by like leaves on the river. It is to discover that when the construction project pauses even briefly, what remains is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is warmth. It is the simple, quiet joy of being here without the heavy work of being someone. There is an old Zen saying, "Sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself." That is the feeling of this. When the building stops, life does not stop. Life keeps going beautifully and effortlessly, the way spring keeps coming whether or not we are there to supervise it. The grass does not need our thoughts to grow. The river does not need our worries to flow. And we do not need our mountains to be who we truly are. You can feel it right now if you like. Just for a moment, let the thoughts be there without following them. Let the memories come and go without holding any of them. Let the future take care of itself. And notice what is here underneath all the building. It is quiet. It is open. It is kind. It has been here all along, waiting for you to set the mountains down. Let us rest here for a moment. Let the river flow. Let the thoughts drift by like clouds, like leaves, like all the small and weightless things they truly are. We have traveled a long way together tonight. We have watched a bird fly at its own reflection. We have sat with a potter in a quiet workshop. We have walked beside a river and watched the water flow. We have set down mountains made of memory and hope. And through all of it, a question has been quietly forming the way a bud forms in the dark before it opens. The question is this: if all these things we hold on to, our perceptions, our wanting, our thoughts of past and future, if all of these are lighter than we thought, what is it that we are still holding on to? What is the last thing we grip? The thing so close we can barely see it. Tonight, as we come to the final stretch of our journey, we arrive at the heart of the matter. And it is both the simplest and the most surprising thing. Throughout this evening, we have been noticing the many ways the mind builds a sense of self. It builds it through our reactions, through our comparisons, through our stories of past and future, and through our wanting. Each time we notice one of these patterns, it begins to loosen, like a knot that comes undone when you stop pulling at it. But there is one more thread, and this one is so fine, so close, that we almost never see it. It is the sense of being the one who knows. Right now, as you listen, there is hearing. There are thoughts arising. There are sensations in your body. All of these are being known. And somewhere in that knowing, there is a subtle feeling. I am the one who is aware of all this. I am the observer. I am the witness. This awareness, this is who I really am. It is the most natural thing in the world to feel this way. After all, we have been exploring awareness all evening. We notice that it does not suffer. We notice that it is like a sky or a mirror, unchanged by what passes through it. And it would be very easy, very comfortable to settle into that awareness and say, here, this is home. This is the real me. And yet the Buddha, with the gentleness and precision that runs through all his teaching, pointed to something even beyond this. He said, by rightly understanding I am, one makes an end of suffering. He did not mean by defending I am, or by finding a more refined version of I am, but by understanding it, by seeing through it, by recognizing that even this most basic feeling, this sense of being someone who is aware, is itself something that arises and passes. It is not the ground, it is another cloud. Perhaps the most beautiful cloud of all, but still a cloud, still passing through. This might sound unsettling. If I am not even the awareness, then what am I? Where do I stand? But the invitation here is not to figure that out. It is to rest in the not knowing. And what the ancient teachers discovered, what they kept trying to share with us across all these centuries, is that the not knowing is not frightening. It is the most peaceful place there is. Let us explore a story about this. In a monastery nestled in a valley between green hills, where the mornings were misty and the nights were full of stars, there was a student who had practiced for many years. This student had arrived at the monastery as a young person, restless and full of questions, and over the years had learned a great deal. The breath had become steady, the mind had become quiet.
There was a real ability to watch thoughts come and go without being caught by them.
The comparing mind had been seen and softened. The grip of wanting had loosened. By all accounts, this student had come a long way. And yet, something was still not at rest. Something so subtle it was hard to name. One evening, after the other students had gone to sleep and the monastery was quiet, this student went to the teacher's room. A small lamp was burning. The teacher was sitting by the window, looking out at the dark garden. "May I ask you something?" the student said. "Of course, sit." The student sat and for a moment just listened to the silence. Then, "I have made progress. I can watch my thoughts without following them. I can sit with discomfort without reacting. I can see the comparing mind at work and let it be. I have even started to notice how wanting feels in the body, and sometimes I can simply let it pass."
"That is good," the teacher said.
"But there is still something," the student continued. "There is still a feeling of me at the center of it all. The one who's watching, the one who's doing all of this noticing, the one who has made progress. And I cannot seem to let go of that. It is like the last wall in a room I have been slowly clearing. I can see it, but I cannot find the door through it." The teacher listened quietly, hands folded in the lamplight. Outside, a night bird called once and then was still. Then the teacher asked, "When you are watching your thoughts, who is watching?" "I am," the student said. "And when you watch that I am, what happens?" The student paused, frowning slightly. "I suppose another I arises to watch the first one, and another behind that?" "Yes," the teacher replied. "It is like a hall of mirrors. Every time I try to see the one who is seeing, there's another one behind it. I can never quite reach the end." The teacher smiled. "Then stop reaching. Stop trying to find the watcher. Instead, ask yourself, what if there is no one there? Not as something terrible, not as a loss, not as an emptiness to be feared, but as a relief. What if the watching is happening, but there is no one doing it? The way the rain is simply raining. No one is making the rain fall, it simply falls. What if your awareness is like that? Simply aware, simply knowing, with no one behind it. The student sat with this for a long time. The lamplight flickered. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a sound like breathing. The night bird called again, further away now. And then something shifted. Not a dramatic awakening, not fireworks or thunder, but just a quiet settling, like the last ripple on a pond going still. The student looked up, and there was a different quality in the eyes, not more intense, if anything, softer, more open. "It is like the room got bigger," the student said softly. "The walls fell away, and everything is still here. The sounds, the lamplight, you, me. But no one is holding any of it. It is just here, on its own." "Yes," the teacher said, "that is rest, real rest. The kind that does not depend on holding anything together, because nothing needs to be held." They sat together in the quiet for a while longer, and the student noticed that the silence was not empty. It was full of the sound of wind, full of the warmth of the lamp, full of the feeling of simply being here. And there was no one claiming any of it. No one saying, "This is mine, this is my peace, this is my awareness." It was just peace, just awareness, belonging to no one, available to everyone. There is a particular habit of mind that keeps this "I am" feeling alive, even when we are being very still and very aware. The ancient teachers called it the craving for becoming. It is one of the subtlest forms of wanting and one of the most persistent. Unlike the obvious desires, the wanting of things and experiences, this one hides inside our quietest moments. It works like this. We are sitting quietly, being present, and everything seems still. And somewhere, just beneath the surface, there is a leaning forward, a feeling of, "I am being present in order to become more peaceful. I am watching my breath in order to reach a deeper state. I am letting go in order to feel free." There is a hidden "in order to" running beneath our stillness, like a current beneath calm water. We might not even notice it as wanting. It feels more like a direction, a gentle pressure, a sense that this moment is not quite the destination, but a step towards somewhere better. Even rest can become a strategy. Even peace can become something we are trying to achieve. And in that trying, that subtle leaning, the self sneaks back in through the back door. I am the one who is about to become peaceful. I am the one who is almost there. This "in order to" is the craving for becoming. It is the feeling of being in this moment while quietly reaching for the next one, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the moment to deliver something, some result, some reward, some confirmation that we are doing it right. It is so subtle that we can spend years not noticing it, and yet it is the very thing that keeps the wheel turning. Not the big wanting, not the obvious desires, but this tiny, almost invisible lean, this whisper of "not quite enough yet" or "not quite there yet" that keeps us just slightly ahead of where we are. It is the sense of always arriving, but never quite being here. And this is where a very old phrase becomes something new and alive. In the Buddhist tradition, there is an expression that people often use to describe the moment of their deepest understanding. It appears again and again in the old texts, spoken by those who found what they were looking for. The phrase is, "Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away." We have all heard something like this before. Everything changes, nothing lasts. It sounds like a statement about impermanence, and it is. But tonight, let us hear it differently. Let us hear it not as a philosophy, not as something to agree with or think about, but as a living instruction. Something you can bring into this very moment, the way you might bring a candle into a dark room. Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. Feel what happens when you let that phrase settle in, not in the mind, but in the body, in the chest, in the belly. Whatever is arising right now, this sensation, this thought, this breath, it will pass. Whatever peace you might find in the next moment, it too will pass. Whatever restlessness, whatever calm, whatever joy, whatever heaviness, all of it has the nature to arise, and all of it will pass away. Without exception, without a single thing left out. And that, without exception, is where the power lives. Because the craving for becoming always has a secret hope. It whispers, yes, everything changes, but this next moment will be the one worth keeping. This next state will be the one that stays. The phrase, spoken gently and truthfully, cuts through that hope. Not cruelly, not coldly, but the way the morning sun cuts through mist, clearly, naturally, revealing what was always there underneath. And when this is really felt, not just understood, but felt in the body, something remarkable happens. The leaning stops. The craving for becoming goes quiet, because there is nothing to lean toward, nothing to crave. Whatever you might reach for is already on its way somewhere else. Whatever you might try to hold has already begun to slip through your fingers. Not because the world is cruel, but because that is simply the nature of things. They flow, they arise and they pass, like the river, like the dream, like the clouds in the sky of awareness. And in the moment when the leaning stops, there is a freedom that is hard to put into words. It is not the freedom of getting somewhere. It is the freedom of no longer needing to get anywhere. It is the feeling of stepping off a wheel that has been turning for as long as you can remember. The wheel keeps turning as wheels do. The world keeps flowing, but you are no longer on it. You are standing on solid ground, feeling the wind on your face, and the wheel is just a wheel. It has no power over you unless you climb back on. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of the end of suffering. Not a world without change, not a life without sensation or feeling, but the end of the craving that turns every moment into a stepping stone toward some other moment. It is the end of the feeling that this, right here, is not quite enough. Because it is enough. It has always been enough. We simply could not see it while we were on the wheel, and so we arrive at the deepest teaching of the evening. The words are simple. They have been offered for over 2,000 years, passed from teacher to student in lamplight, in monastery gardens, and in the shade of old trees. The Buddha said that if you have heard them, you have heard everything. If you have practiced them, you have practiced everything. If you have realized them, you have realized everything. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Nothing. Not the body, not the thoughts, not the emotions, not the stories of the past, not the hopes for the future. Not the pleasant feelings, not the unpleasant ones, not the awareness itself, and not even the one who's trying to let go. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to. These words are not a command. They are not asking you to do something difficult. They are a permission, a deep, generous, ancient permission to put everything down. Everything. The whole beautiful, heavy, complicated bundle of being someone. All the roles, all the identities, all the stories of who you are and who you should be and who you wish you were. you can set it all down. Not forever, and not as some grim act of renunciation, but right now, just for this breath, just for this moment. And what you find when your arms are finally empty is not loss. It is not a void. It is not the cold, frightening emptiness that the mind sometimes imagines. It is the vast, quiet, luminous space that was always here underneath the holding. It is warmth. It is peace. It is the feeling of coming home, to a home you never actually left. This is what it means to become no one. Not to be erased and not to be diminished, but to discover that what you truly are was never the one who was holding on. It was the openness itself, the warmth itself, the peace that does not need a name or a story or a self to be complete. It does not need to be earned, and it does not need to be achieved. It is already here, the way the sky is already here behind the clouds, and the way the silence is already here beneath the sounds. You do not need to achieve this tonight. You do not need to achieve it ever. It is not an achievement. It is a letting go. And it can happen in any moment, even this one, even now, even in the simple, quiet act of resting here and listening. Just for a breath, let everything be held by something larger than you. The way the river is held by the valley. The way the stars are held by the night sky. And the way every sound is held by the silence from which it came. You do not need to hold yourself together. You are already held. You have always been held. And in that holding, there is nothing to fear. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to become. There is only this warmth, this quiet, this breath, this peace. Let us rest here in this quiet place. There is nothing more to reach for, nothing more to figure out. Just this breath, just this moment. If there is a watcher still lingering, perhaps we can ask one more time, who is the one who is finally ready to let go? Perhaps, if you look very closely, you will find that there is no one there at all. Not as a loss, not as a frightening void, but as the most profound relief you have ever known. Imagine just for a moment that the watching is simply happening, but there is no one behind it doing the work. Think of the way the rain is simply raining. No one is standing in the clouds making the rain fall. No one is commanding the drops to find the earth. It simply falls. It is a natural, effortless movement of the world. What if your awareness is exactly like that? Simply aware, simply knowing. A luminous, open space with no one standing at the center holding it all together. In that monastery room, as the lamplight flickered and the wind moved through the trees like a slow, deep breath, the student sat with this idea until something finally shifted. It wasn't a dramatic explosion of light or a thunderous realization. It was a quiet settling, like the very last ripple on a pond finally going still. When the student looked up at the teacher, the eyes were different, softer, wider, as if they were no longer trying to catch anything. The room seemed to get bigger because the walls of the self had finally fallen away. Everything was still there, the smell of the lamp, the sound of the nightbird, the presence of the teacher, but no one was claiming any of it. No one was saying, "This is my peace," or "This is my awareness." It was just peace, just awareness, belonging to no one and therefore available to everyone. This is the state of real rest, the kind of rest that doesn't depend on things being a certain way because there is no longer a someone who needs to hold the world in place.
But even here, in this quietness, there is a habit of mind that can sneak back in. The ancient teachers called it the craving for becoming. It is perhaps the subtlest form of wanting we will ever encounter. It doesn't look like the obvious greed for things or experiences. Instead, it hides inside our most spiritual moments. It works like a hidden current beneath calm water. You are sitting quietly, you are being present, and everything seems still. But just beneath the surface, there is a tiny leaning forward, a feeling of, I am being present in order to become more peaceful. Or, I am watching my breath in order to reach a deeper state. There is a hidden in order to running through the stillness. Even rest can become a strategy. Even peace can become a trophy we are trying to win. And in that subtle leaning, the self sneaks back in through the back door. I am the one who is about to become enlightened. I am the one who is almost there. This almost there is the whisper of the craving for becoming. It keeps us always arriving, but never quite here.
It keeps us just one step ahead of where we actually are, waiting for the moment to finally deliver the reward we think we've earned. And this is where a very old phrase, one that has echoed through the centuries, becomes a living candle in the dark. Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. We have heard these words before, perhaps as a philosophical statement about impermanence. But tonight, let us hear them as a direct instruction for the body. Feel what happens when you let that phrase settle into your chest, into your belly. Whatever is arising right now, this sensation of warmth, this wandering thought, this very breath, it will pass. Whatever peace you find in the next minute, it too will pass. Whatever restlessness, whatever joy, whatever heaviness, all of it has the nature to arise, and all of it will, without exception, pass away. When you truly feel this, the leaning stops. The craving for becoming goes quiet because there is nothing left to lean toward. Why reach for something that is already on its way somewhere else? Why try to grip a moment that has already begun to slip through your fingers? It isn't a cruel reality. It is just the nature of the river. It flows, and in the moment the leaning stops, you step off the wheel of wanting, the wheel of becoming, the wheel of being someone who is always trying to get somewhere better. The wheel may keep turning, the world will keep moving, but you are no longer on it. You are standing on solid ground, feeling the cool wind on your face, watching the wheel spin as just a wheel. It has no power over you unless you choose to climb back on. This is the end of suffering that the Buddha spoke of. Not a life where nothing happens, but a life where we no longer use the present moment as a stepping stone toward a future that never arrives. Because this, right here, is enough. It has always been enough. We were just too busy running on the wheel to see it. We arrive now at the deepest permission of the evening. For over 2,000 years, these words have been passed down. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Nothing. Not the body, not the thoughts, not the emotions, not the stories of who you used to be, and not the hopes for who you might become. Not even the awareness itself. These words are not a command to be cold or detached. They are a permission to put the bundle down. The whole beautiful, heavy, complicated bundle of being you. All the roles you play, all the identities you guard,
all the ways you think you should be. You can set it all down right now, just for this breath. What you find when your arms are finally empty is not a frightening void. It is the vast, luminous space that was always there, hidden beneath the weight of your carrying.
It is a home you never actually left. To become no one is to discover that what you truly are was never the one holding on. You are the openness. You are the peace that doesn't need a name to be complete. You don't need to achieve this tonight. You don't need to earn it. It is already here, the way the sky is already here behind the clouds. You only need to let go. Just for this moment, let everything be held by something larger than you. Let the silence hold the sounds. Let the night sky hold the stars. Let the valley hold the river. You do not need to hold yourself together. You are already held. You have always been held. In this holding, there is nothing to fear. There is only this warmth, this quiet, this breath. Our journey tonight is coming to a close, and it is time to bring these ideas to rest. We have walked through the landscape of the mind together. We watched the small bird fighting its own reflection and realized how often we fight our own shadows. We sat with the potter and learned that the greatest creation is the peace found in putting the tools down. We watched the river and glimpsed the dreamlike flow of our own experiences. We set down the mountains of the past and the future, realizing they were made of nothing heavier than thought. And we stepped off the wheel, even if only for a few seconds, to feel the solid ground of being. None of this needs to be remembered. If you forget every word spoken tonight, it doesn't matter. The teachings, like the breath, arise and pass away. What matters is the quiet, open awareness that remains. If a seed of peace was planted, let it grow on its own. If it fades, let it fade. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one you need to be. The stories of your day can dissolve now. Your body can grow heavy and warm, sinking into the embrace of the bed. The night will hold you, just as it has held every traveler who has ever sought rest beneath the stars. If you found a moment of stillness here tonight, consider staying a part of this quiet community. If these reflections brought you a sense of ease, perhaps you might subscribe or leave a gentle comment to share that light with others who are also seeking the way home. It is a simple way to keep the lamp burning for the next person who wanders in from the noise of the world. But for now, simply rest. Let the silence be your blanket. Let the rhythm of your breath be your only clock. You are home. You are safe. You are no one, and in being no one, you are finally free. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Sleepy Monk.